Welcome to today's episode. Let's talk about today's guest. We have Maya from Focal Point, marketing coordinator with them. How are you doing today, Maya?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's great to have you on today's episode, and curious to learn a little bit more. And I'm sure our listeners are tuning in, wondering what FP Focal Point is all about. So, in your own words, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so Focal Point is a SaaS company. We're B2B. We create procurement software to help empower CPOs and their teams within procurement functions and organizations, primarily enterprise-sized companies, but we've also been exploring into the SMB market as well.
That's very important. Always exploring into the markets, and so that way our listeners can get a good understanding of Focal Point here. What would you say then is the key problem that you guys like to solve for clients?
Yeah, so we talk about ourselves like a procurement solution made for procurement by procurement people. Our founder, Anders Zlobovic, worked in procurement and as the CPO for over 20 years. And after seeing the increased complexity and the increased rate at which complexity was showing up in that job function, he decided to start Focal Point, which is a software that helps bring all of the tools that procurement is so used to using to one place, to one focal point, and helps to add visibility and control through the procurement orchestration process.
That's super important. So great that in order to do to that. And so is there a certain type of vertical segment that you guys like to go for or an ideal ICP? Yep.
Sure. So, I mean, procurement is relevant in every single industry inherently, but we do tend to work with financial businesses, financial services rather, and insurance as well. We even have clients in pharmaceuticals. So we really do run the gamut with the corporations we serve.
Definitely, that's important. All right, awesome. And so then how would these industries usually find out about Focal Point? Is there a top client acquisition channel for you guys?
Sure. We're a little bit different than some other industries. People don't always think about procurement right away, and a lot of people don't really know what it is. But that being said, we're a pretty close-knit community. We're very small. So there really is a lot of in-person networking that we do. But obviously, in 2024, in addition to going to conferences and meeting people face to face, it's so important to have a brand identity online. And that's where our website and our social media efforts come in. So as much as we do that person-to-person networking at conferences and things like that, we also host webinars and online events, as well as creating thought leadership through our website and our LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. Great to hear that. And so that way our listeners could go ahead and first off go ahead and visit you guys. You could visit them at getfocalpoint.com. What role does the website then play for client acquisition?
It's huge. So if you look at analysts like at Gartner, they're talking so much about how, especially the B2B customer buying journey is so self-led. Like it's a very large percentage of B2B software consumers who would even consider buying without talking to a sales representative, which from a marketer perspective can be kind of scary. You obviously want to lead your prospects through that journey and make sure they're not missing anything. But we also have to meet consumers where they're at. And because of that, the website is a really, really great tool for us to kind of map out what journeys our customers are going to take on that self-qualification, self-education journey and meet them there with things like white papers, ebooks, pre-recorded webinars, promotion of different sorts of news and awards that we've won. That way they have that really big wealth of information to educate themselves. And then obviously come in with that call to action. Hey, come schedule a demo, come talk to us, come join a webinar to learn more. And the website serves the hub for all of that. And it's super easily accessible and it looks good, I think. So it's a really great tool.
Definitely. I mean, it's the first card, right? When people start investigating stuff, definitely great. And on that note, then, is there any tools or tips that you would recommend our listeners as far as some website lead generation?
Yeah, so I guess my biggest tip would be to first map out what journey your customer is going to take when they get onto your website. That's really, really important. We run a WordPress site, but there are a ton of really awesome tools. It just depends on what you're comfortable with, what your comfortability is with development. I'm not a web dev, so WordPress worked really well for me. Getting really comfortable in Google Analytics so you can actually look at the process and journeys that users are taking through your website. And then we also use Hotjar, which is a tool for kind of recording and following customer journeys through the site. That being said, again, having an awareness of what journey that your customer is going to take, like sit here and think, okay, I'm an enterprise company and we have a really mature procurement function. What sorts of questions might I ask versus, we're a really young company and a really small, and our procurement team is a team of one. What kind of business case or use case might be more convincing for me? And making sure all those profiles are represented on your website so people can really resonate with the story that you're telling within their own experience.
Awesome to hear that from you. Great tips there. Next is let's switch gears then a little bit, Maya, and let's talk about you being the leader there for Get Focal Point, being the marketing coordinator. What are some key tasks you focus on your day-to-day work?
It's a really wide scope. So we are a startup. We now have a marketing team of two. So I now have someone I manage, and she's super helpful and awesome. But it's all sorts of things. Any in-person events that we have, in-person dinners, conferences, keynote speeches that our CEO is going to work on, I'm there with those, helping to write content, helping to write copy. As far as the website goes, before we got a dev on hand, it was a lot of watching YouTube videos, using AI to help write code, and kind of just like figuring out the dev side of things. And then obviously strategy. And that's where I'm trying to move this year, just personally, moving into a more strategic role so that we can make our decisions and choose where our spend is going more strategically and more aligned with our goal, which ultimately is for consumer education, just making sure people know what procurement is, what procurement orchestration is. And so that's kind of my goal, is to better myself strategically so that I can better help the company.
Definitely, that's important for everybody, right? For there at Get Focal Point. So awesome to hear that from you. And I mean, with all the overwhelming content out there, I mean, where do you get to learn, grow, and keep up to date with all the new tech out there?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things I do. I actually just returned from Social Media Marketing World, which is a really awesome marketing conference out in San Diego. And there are really awesome people who attend and share their knowledge. I learned so much about AI, so much about Google Analytics, so many things that I didn't know. So that's a really great resource. And they actually have a marketer society you can join too, with like a little Facebook group. LinkedIn is huge. I love LinkedIn. There are a couple influencers I follow there that have really, really good insights and are super generous with their knowledge and time. I'm young and I know that. So I know I have a lot to learn. So I'm always trying to absorb as much as I can. And then the last one is a little bit weird, but it's a tip I give to fellow marketers. Actually go on Reddit, and I follow all the subs relevant to my industry. So I follow like r/procurement, r/supply chain. And I just kind of sit in there like a fly on the wall, and I watch the conversations of the people in our industry and the troubles they have and the questions they ask. Because when I go back to write strategy and think about copy and think about, what webinar content should we create, I can actually make stuff that people are talking about in the real world. And I know it's like a little weird, but it's a really good way to understand the people you're serving so that you can serve them better.
That's super important. And yeah, I think like you mentioned, I mean, Reddit, it's something out there, but definitely there's a lot of interesting things going on. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. Yep. Awesome. Well, let's jump into our next section here, Maya, which is our rapid fire question rounds. Are you ready for them?
I am.
All right, perfect. All right. Well, first off, what is the last book that you read?
The last book I read, I'm actually still in the middle of reading it. It's called Platonic, and it's not marketing related, but I find it really helpful anyway. It's about learning your attachment style and how that can influence friendships and relationships you make in your adulthood. And it's all about building more strong, healthy relationships. And marketing is a lot about relationship building. So I found the psychology of that book super interesting and honestly pretty relevant, even though it's not strictly about marketing.
Okay. All right. Great. Interesting to read that. Next is, what is one single thing that your company is focused on at the moment the most?
Education. We have people who know what we do, like, oh, I've heard of Focal Point, but they don't really know what we're truly about or what procurement orchestration is. So we're running these webinars, creating white papers, showing up to conferences to really focus on that core education piece within our ICP so that people can learn what we do. So even if we're not relevant for them right now, they'll know and remember for the future when these problems might crop up for them.
Definitely. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Next up is, if there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be that one thing that you want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
Yeah, actually, I didn't write an answer for this one down, but I suppose I would love to be able to do all dev on my own. I'm not a web dev, and that's always been kind of the thing that I've struggled with, but it's been really cool. With AI, we've gotten to the point where we're increasing the amount that I can do on my own. I can kind of go into Chat GPT, and I have built GPTs for our company, and I have one that helps me with dev. So I go and I say, hey, I need a button, I need this hex code color, and I need it to say this, and it'll pop out a button. But in the future, it would be really cool if AI was to the point that I could pretty much independently do updates on my website without having to wait for, say, hey, devs on the other side of the world, are you up? And
Yeah.
our team is awesome, but it would be really, really cool to be able to do those things independently. And I think it would empower lots of marketers to be more effective with website marketing.
Definitely. All right. Also awesome to hear that from you. And next is, if there's one repetitive task that you could automate, then what would that be?
The answer I wrote down, embarrassingly, is expenses. I know that that is not like a real answer, but the other thing I wrote down as far as like a marketing answer is reporting. So sometimes it's super repetitive, and like I said, we do use some tools like Google Analytics and Hotjar, but and this is probably something that AI will help with too, as you can kind of use plain text to start to speak with your data more. But all marketers know your social media reports, your outbound email reports, your website reporting. Some of those analytics can get tedious, and being able to automate that would be awesome.
Definitely. Okay. Awesome. Great to hear that. And well, lastly, Maya, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer today?
Yeah. So maybe this is a little bit cliche, but I'm 24 now and I've made a lot of mistakes. And when I look back, the places where I've learned the most is where I've messed up. So my advice would be don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna mess up. Like it's inevitable. Nobody's perfect. And I think the super important thing to take away from that is to one, give yourself grace. Marketing, especially digital marketing, and the rate of change that we contend with is pretty tough. But if you look at those mistakes and say, what can I do better? How can I learn? How can I reach out to people more senior than I am who are very smart and very willing and generous to share their knowledge? Like, how can I allow that to help me improve so that I can grow? And I think that's the way better way to look at making errors, then, oh my gosh, I'm so bad, I'm never going to get better. Like we've all sent an email with the wrong subject line. We've all, maybe published something before we were supposed to. Like it happens, it's going to happen. But learning is the best thing that you can do there.
Definitely. All right. Great. Some advice there for our listeners. And well, Maya, we're coming to the end of the show here. But before we end, I do want to give you the last word. If someone forgets everything about the interview today, what is that one thing they should remember about your company?
About focal point, well, procurement's super important, and we want to empower procurement. We want to empower CPOs. And if you don't know anything about procurement, jump on over to getfocalpoint.com, and you will learn so much, especially if you're in supply chain and procurement right now.
There you guys heard it. Visit them, like she mentioned, at getfocalpoint.com. Maya, thank you so much for being on with us today in today's episode. To our listeners, so much for tuning in. And I'm looking forward to our next episode at Pathmonk Presents. Thanks a lot, Maya.
Thank you. Thanks.